Welcome to Focus on Why, the podcast where reflection sparks action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and together we'll explore compelling stories, profound insights, and transformative experiences from inspiring guests worldwide. Feeling lost or unfulfilled? Searching for clarity, purpose, or meaning in your work and life? This podcast invites you on a journey of self-discovery to align your work with your values, shape your future with intention, and create a purposeful way of life. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we start, have you signed up to receive my weekly email newsletter, Friday Focus? Every Friday, I focus on one topic with one action arising. The link to sign up is in the show notes. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Alex Clapp. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we have a thank you also to Sam Rathling for the introduction, don't we?
We do. It's a mutual friend of ours who's put us together to have this conversation. And I think it's always powerful when you get introduced, when somebody says, oh my gosh, you two need to speak. This would be an amazing conversation. And I think that's always, from the heartfelt, isn't it? So yeah, it's a big thanks to Sam.
And we did have an amazing conversation, and we're going to have another one now. So I'm going to dive straight in and ask you, what is it you're focusing on at the moment, Alex?
So at the moment, I am focusing on building Claritee 2.0. And I describe Claritee 2.0 as a hub or a Google of wellness, well-being, and different ways of an individual being able to look after themselves, an individual to be able to find different things, different ways, different people that can help them find the best version of themselves, and to be able to really, work on themselves in a unique way, because I believe we're all individual. I believe not one thing works for everybody. And there's so many amazing people that I've met in the last 3 years doing fabulous things that hardly anybody know about. So yeah, Claritee 2.0, this is my big focus at the moment.
And for there to be Claritee 2.0, what was the Claritee previous to that?
So Claritee, the original Claritee was formed just under 3 years ago. And the Claritee was formed off my own personal struggles, and was formed to showcase and to allow people to see what was possible without mind-altering substances, drink and drugs, and to allow people to have fun, have nights out, have entertainment, engage with each other, all as their authentic selves, just as we did as children, just as we did before anybody was introduced to alcohol. And yeah, we've done it on a large scale, shall we say. And we've had a couple of thousand people come to our events over the last few years. We've done a couple of UK firsts. We've really put our head above the parapet and shown what is possible, but not by telling anybody what to do, because I truly believe that telling anybody what to do doesn't work. However, showing people what is possible and allowing people the choice and a safe space to have that fun, that environment, that engagement is super powerful, super, super powerful.
And this show, not tell, way of working that you've adopted, what was the resistance for you in previously maybe being alerted to the differences, but just not going there?
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, the world is evolving. And if I take a step back and say 15 years ago, if somebody had said to me that everybody would be meditating and doing sound baths these days, I probably would have looked at them and gone, yeah, okay, yeah, that's for the hippies and that's for the people. But in reality, the world's progressed and everybody's become comfortable about beginning to look after themselves mentally, which I think is amazing. But I still think we are not quite there as a country, as a world yet. I think the progress that's been made in terms of people looking after themselves physically has been immense. And everybody knows that walking, exercise, training is really good for your mental health, and it helps you as an individual. But so many people are still not able to focus on looking after themselves mentally. And there's still a lot of old ways, especially in the corporate world as well, where there was, and there always has been a huge drink, booze culture in and around the corporate world. And I could see that the statistics were shouting about the next generation coming through and how they've become a lot more health conscious. And then the statistics were going further, saying about um, nearly a third of people, middle-aged people, were walking away from alcohol. And I was thinking to myself, wow, these are powerful statistics. The world is changing, but the piece of the puzzle that hadn't changed and still, is on a journey to change is the workforce and the corporate culture of how you engage, how you entertain, how you bring your team together. And that was the bit that was, and it is still missing, and we're taking steps, shall I say? But just like anything, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it is literally step by step. And that's the journey that I've been on, because when I first formed Claritee nearly 3 years ago, I've had this vision in my head that I would change everything within inside the first 3 years, and the world would be a completely different place, and that wasn't realistic. And there's a lot of past and a lot of time, that as a culture forms over many, many years, doesn't it? And an environment, over many, many years, and it's to change a culture and an environment around workforces. It takes time. It takes time, definitely. But the amazing thing, and the really positive thing that I can actually honestly say, is I'm beginning to see it change. I'm beginning to see it change, and the feedback we're getting, the connections we're making, the engagement we're getting from various different companies, and people that don't want to get left behind, because ultimately, as a business owner, I own multiple businesses myself. And if I wasn't prepared to change and move and adapt with the times, then I'm not going to attract the best talent, because people aren't going to want to come and work for a company that's stuck in the old ways. And that's the reality. But it's still a challenge for a business to take the new generation, the middle generation that are semi in, semi out, and the old generation who are only doing what they've always only known or been shown. And to bring those three people and those three generations together, um, it takes a little bit of time, and it takes stepping back and realizing that actually you've got to allow choice, you've got to allow inclusivity, and you've got to allow a space that people are entirely comfortable and able to be their authentic selves. And for me, that doesn't happen in and around a booze culture. Um, so it's, and I just want to be 100% clear, because this is something that I always get across. I am not telling anybody not to drink. That is one thing that I am not about. I don't say to anybody, do not drink. It's every individual's choice. The only thing I would always challenge, or not challenge, but the only thing I would only always say to somebody is, I think each of us individually know whether we are a good drinker or not a good drinker. I was never a good drinker looking back personally, and I am willing to hold my hand up and go, well, actually, when I take a step back and think about my drinking habits over the years, I was like Pringles. Um, once the lid was off, it wasn't. I was certainly not content to have two or three drinks and say, well, that was lovely. I'm going home now. That was not me. So I think it's, are we willing to be honest and realistic with ourselves?
Once you pop, you can't stop. is the Pringles catchphrase, and it is a case. I mean, I'm almost now 2 years sober, and it has been life changing, and it was also a well overdue decision to have made, but I couldn't be told. I had to make it myself, and there were people who were advising and recommending. I've shared my story before, and having gone through an ADHD diagnosis, I now understand that the alcohol for me had been a way of self-medicating my ADHD. And so now that I understand that, and also I'd actually started already to remove alcohol before I got my diagnosis. So I had made that decision independently. But when we go back to the workforce and that culture, I feel that there's another layer to it. And that is the layer of lack of fulfillment. And if you look across the global workplace right now, there is, according to Gallup, the latest State of the Workplace report for 2025, it's 79% who are actively disengaged or not engaged in their work. And so this not being engaged and not enjoying work then is adding and fueling this issue of the alcohol in the culture as well, of trying to numb, trying to avoid and facing what's going on. And I think that that's why it's part and part still very much intrinsic.
Yeah, that's a really powerful statistic, and I didn't actually know that. But uh, if yeah, look, if we think about it, um, and I always take a step back and try and think about things logically. If somebody is not happy, and if somebody is, facing challenges or not content in what they're doing in their life, the easier option is to utilize something else to numb the pain, to basically block it out and to push it away, to push it down. And we all know that alcohol is brilliant at that for a period of time. And that's the reality, that it's, whereas if if people were actually able to talk, get a sense of connection, and basically connect with other people who were feeling the same, and open up and have those conversations, dialogue, be challenged on their thought processes, you would find that people wouldn't need that alcohol. But the alcohol is the easier way of dealing with things. It was easier for me to continue to drink than it was for me to stop. 1,000,000%. It was the easier option, and the easier choice was to continue to drink.
And what was it that finally helped you to stop?
Yeah, this is something that I've only really truly realised in the last year. But as an addict myself, I never knew how to look after myself, and was always a lost soul. And I think about this genuinely, and I think about all the other addicts that I've met in the last so many years, and there's hundreds of people. And I was only thinking and reflecting this morning that every addict that I've met is actually a genuine, lovely person, but they are almost like a lost soul. And I was a lost soul who didn't know who I truly was, what made me happy. And I spent my entire life looking after everybody else and running away from myself, because that was the easier way to deal with things, to block everything out, to run away from myself. So I had no idea how to look after myself. So I couldn't, and I hold my hands up now, I couldn't get clean for myself. And that was, and everybody used to say, you've got to do it for yourself. And these days, I do it for myself. But in the actual very beginning, I had to do it for my son because as a dad, I can look after somebody else. As a dad, I knew when my son told me he needed me, I knew I had to step up to the plate. And whilst I couldn't look after myself, I could find the ability to look after him. And that is how I changed and basically found the strength to get into recovery.
And in that moment or time frame of understanding the motivation to do it for him, and then to understand and to have the, let's use the word clarity, to then start looking at what it is that you were enjoying or you were able to do, or your strengths, your gifts, because then you were able to look in the mirror and actually see who Alex was. Whereas before, it wasn't clear because you weren't actually seeing anyone.
Yeah, I was living in existence. I was living in an existence which was all based on what I perceived or other people's perception on success, what I perceived were the right things that you should do, and it was, I didn't know myself. I didn't have a clue and I wasn't prepared, or I didn't allow myself to have any emotions, to have any, genuine feelings. As soon as something got uncomfortable, I would just run away. Just block it all out, push it away, and basically pretend that it was not going on. And it's, yeah, it's just crazy thinking about it. I spent the first 40 years of my life, pushing and all my emotions down, just pushing them away, suppressing all of my emotions and pretending to the outside world that everything was great, no matter what was going on the inside, or no matter. And I didn't allow myself to truly know how I felt. I remember I wouldn't allow myself to cry. You know, it was something that I wouldn't allow, because I perceived it to be a sign of weakness. So it was, no, you're not allowed to cry. No matter what happens, you cannot cry. And it's like, what is that about? It's ridiculous. But it's something, I say it's ridiculous, but in reality, I am sure that maybe not to the level that I was at, but I'm sure there is a lot of people that relate to it, and that either, suppress their feelings, or use alcohol as a coping mechanism, or a combination of both, or, can, if they actually take a step back and think about and process, their own journeys, there will be times when people can relate. And it's, yeah, it's been a real journey. This has been a real journey, for me over the last 5 years, definitely.
And when you say, what was that about? What was that about?
Yeah, I I guess it was just running away. It was running away. That's what it was about. It was running away. And I truly believe running away is easier sometimes. Running away, hiding, carrying on drinking, was easier than facing and processing and dealing, is what I perceived. And actually, my perception was wrong because it was a little bit uncomfortable at times, and I got upset and I had various feelings and, all the rest of it. But that's okay, because a thought or a feeling isn't going to kill me. And if I'm brutally honest with myself and with everybody else, had I not stopped, I wouldn't be here today. And that's nearly 3 years clean. But I wouldn't be here today because I was really beginning to push the boundaries and really getting into a dark place where nothing was enough. And it was, I would have, I know myself that, yeah, it wasn't headed in a good direction at all. And I've just felt uncomfortable, then in my own body. I've just felt it. I've genuinely just felt how horrendous, I was really pushing against, life effectively.
And it's interesting when you share about how your perception was that it was easier to run away, to numb, to suppress, and actually the alcohol exacerbates the anxiety, and there were other things that you were taking as well. But I can talk from the fact that in the moment you think it's helping, but actually the anxiety that you experience afterwards, once you sort of the next day, in terms of the shame and embarrassment and all of the other emotions that compound, it's so much worse.
Yeah. And listen, alcohol does nothing good for your body or your brain. Let's be realistic, and it doesn't do anything good. But again, I'm gonna still jump back to I am not telling anybody what to do because for some people, if they are a good drinker and they can have 2 or 3 drinks a couple of times a week, once a week, and that's their enjoyment and they've got a lovely balance, then fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Um, I used alcohol in a bad way. I used alcohol in a bad way, and I believe that many of us do. Many of us use it in a bad way, and the problem for me was the more I used it, the more I needed it. So my, requirements went up. Just like anything, your tolerance levels go up and, really ridiculous. This is ridiculous. But by the end, I was drinking a full litre bottle of vodka and 4 bottles of wine every single day. And that amount of alcohol going into my system, that's over the course of 7 days, over the course of a week, that's 7 litres of vodka and 28 bottles of wine or something obscene. Um, so my body was craving every single day that next bit of alcohol because it became dependent. It became dependent. Um, and having to detox and come off it was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. But it didn't start at that level. It clearly started at a bottle of wine a night, then it progressed to 2 bottles of wine a night, then it progressed to 2 bottles of wine a night and half a bottle of vodka a day. Then it was, and it's the problem is it's addiction is a progressive thing and it creeps up and bites you when you are least expecting it. And the danger of becoming reliant on utilizing alcohol as a coping mechanism, there is a real danger with it. There's a real danger because once you cross that, I call it a barometer. Once you cross that line, it's the point of no return. And I accept that I will be an addict, an alcoholic, however you want to describe me. I'm not precious over it for the rest of my life. And that's okay. That's okay. Just like if somebody's got a peanut allergy, they will have that for the rest of their lives. Or if somebody's, allergic to, let me think of something else. If somebody's allergic to fish, they'll have that for the rest of their life. I cannot drink for the rest of my life because I am now allergic to it.
It's a great way to see it. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, because I think I can miss it, and I do miss it. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I miss, because I used it for 20 odd years, and I had some great times with it at times. And that's okay to miss it. And it's okay to um, reminisce. But where I am realistic is my brain takes me to the good, fun times. My brain does not take me back to the time at the end where I am sat in a house on my own, drinking on my own with shakes and in an absolute mess, not wanting to be in this world anymore. And that is the reality. And as an addict, my brain is sneaky and tries to remind me of all the good fun times and tells me how much fun it will be, if we had a drink again, and how much of a great time we would have, and how much. Um, but the reality is, I know that basically, if I had one drink, it would be like um, something running through my veins. You can actually envisage it, that my whole body would go through all my veins, and then it would be like the lid on my head would pop off. And it would be like, here we go. And it would be like, see you in a week's time. And I would be back. I have no doubt. I have no doubt at all that I would be back to the place where I finished um, very quickly, very, very quickly. And that's the reality. That's the reality.
I want to go back a minute, Alex, to the company and corporate responsibility. That if you had a company that was handing out packets of cigarettes, people would be, no, that's not acceptable. And it is the acceptability or the acceptance that alcohol is a drug that we as a society have said is okay. But when you look at what it does to the body, it is the only drug that affects the entire body, as opposed to being localized for some other drugs that you can take. Will there be, do you think, legal ramifications in the future where people said, well, this was the culture and now look what's happened?
It's a great question. It's a great question. I don't know that there'll be legal ramifications, but I'm going to put my head above the parapet and say within the next 5 to 10 years, I genuinely believe that inside 10 years' time, company events will not be centered around alcohol at all. And I think that will be the seismic shift, that the workforce, and you can see the slight change is beginning to come. But in the next 10 years, I predict that there will not be alcohol involved in work events. People will obviously, have the freedom to go and choose what they do in their own social lives, with their own friends, with their own family, and that's totally fine. But I think from a business perspective, especially, you have got to be really mindful as to the way that the culture's changing and as to the way that you look after your staff. Because to your point, would you give every single one of your staff 5 packets of fags and go and smoke 20, go and smoke those 100 fags each and have fun? No, you wouldn't. You absolutely wouldn't. Would you? Would you go and give them a load of drugs and say, "Go and take those drugs. Go and take those drugs. Here you go. Here's some of these mushrooms. Go and take these mushrooms, and go and have loads of fun. And oh well, whatever happens doesn't matter because you were taking mushrooms at the time. So we'll let everything go because we gave you the mushrooms. And that's the but I'm going to say this because we've only ever done what we've ever seen and what we've ever known. So for change to happen, we need to see other ways and other things. And this is why Claritee has been formed, to showcase what is possible, to actually lead the way in saying to people, I am not telling you, but I'm showing you. I'm showing you what can happen and what we can do. And that as individuals, we can actually have loads of fun, loads of engagement, loads of connection as our authentic selves. And that's the bit for me. Because when I first set up 3 years ago, and I've got a lot of friends in the corporate world, and everyone looked at me as if I had four heads. And you can imagine, and then people going, "Well, there's a bit of a hypocritical thing of you, saying you were one of the biggest drinkers." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I totally accept that. I am not telling anybody not to drink. Let's be clear about it. I am not telling anybody what to do whatsoever. All I am doing is showcasing that we can have, as human beings, an amazing time and an amazing night of lots of fun, lots of entertainment without any substance, alcohol, drugs, whatever. Um, and it works. It works. And we've had some of the most amazing feedback um, of the thousands and thousands of people who have been. And it's like, well, okay, so I've proved the concept. I've proved the concept. And I think sometimes that's what it's about, isn't it? But it's not been easy. It's not been easy because you've got so much of the old culture and the old ways and the old beliefs. And what amazed me is I spoke to somebody the other day, and they even said, and they were honest with me, which I love, because they said, I don't think we're brave enough to do a Christmas party without alcohol yet. And I was like, wow, it's 2025. The world has changed significantly. But as a business, you do not feel brave enough to do a Christmas party without alcohol. That's scary. That's scary for me.
Yeah, it is scary. And in terms of the purpose piece, Alex, the focus on why, I mean, I get what it is that you're looking to achieve. The purpose for you, what is the emotional significance behind everything? The why?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the genuine purpose for me is I went to the end of the road personally. I literally was very close to not being here, genuinely. And I went to like a very, very dark place. Um, and what I have learned over the last 3, 4 years has shown me that I can't help anybody else at the end of the road. But what I can do is I can help other people on their journey. I can showcase, I can direct, I can guide without telling people. Without telling people, allowing people to know what's out there, to see what's out there, and to find their own way and to find what works for them. And as an individual, we need to be empowered to find what works for ourselves. We don't need to be told what to do. We don't need to be, pushed into trying this or trying that. We have to find ourselves. And we have to get to know ourselves and find what works for us as an individual. But there's that many options, that many amazing people out there, and that many different things that people can try, that I'm going to put it all under one roof. And that's as simple as it is. Because what I don't want to do is know that I could have done something to change things, and not done it. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And that's as simple as it is. I am going to do it. And it's not going to be easy. And it's going to be a lot of hard work. And it's going to be a lot of challenges at times. And it's going to be, a lot of learning. But I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that because if I can help a few people along the way, that's my purpose. If I can stop a few people getting to the end of the road, if I can know that I've probably made a difference to some people's families, some people's children, some people's loved ones because of it, then that is more than enough purpose for me, you know, and that is my purpose. And I truly believe I've been sent back from upstairs to actually do something with purpose. So I better get on with it, hadn't I?
What is it you're most proud of right now, Alex, that you achieved?
Oh, I think genuinely I am most proud of the way I've managed to transform, um, the way I've managed to turn my previous shit show of a mess that I was in into being driven, being using my skill set to do something with purpose and to have a passion to do something with purpose. Because when you're doing something with purpose, it doesn't feel like work. It actually feels like um, rewarding, happy, you know, and it's crazy to think that for some people, success is ticked off by money. But for me, this is more important than money. Doing something where you actually have got a purpose and a true driver for it is the most powerful thing I've ever had in my life.
And your son, is he old enough or was he old enough to know the difference between you 3 years ago and now?
Yeah, 1 million%, 1 million%. And my son is the closest person to me in my life. He always has been, even in my darkest times. But our relationship, bizarrely, our relationship's even stronger from our journey together. Um, from our journey together, because he obviously, very sadly, saw the worst of me, and I would hope now he's getting the best of me. And it's been a very turbulent journey. But you know, uh, yeah, I can only lead now by example, can't I? Um,
Yeah.
that is, yeah, and that's all I can do. I can't change the past. I can't change what I did. I can't change anything that I've done previously, and it doesn't define me as a person. All I can do is control what I do today. And today, I'm going to try and get the best version of myself. And that's as simple as I keep it. I keep it in the day. Um, and it's a powerful way to live.
Well, it's been a powerful conversation and keeping it in the day, in the moment, working on what is possible, showcasing what is possible, to have understood how to connect or reconnect with yourself in ways that you would never have imagined, and sharing how you suppressed your emotions, how you were a lost soul, how you are through dialogue have transformed to where you are now. I just want to say thank you for sharing that journey, because there will be people who listen and go, yeah, okay, I need to be honest with myself. I'm not a good drinker. And this conversation shows what's possible. And we've both been in that place of knowing in your heart that you're not a good drinker and that it's not good. And you're not able to put that lid back on the Pringles pot. It's a case of, even when it's finished, it's like, right, I need another pot of Pringles. So yeah, thank you, Alex, for sharing your journey. I really appreciate it.
That's been my absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. And I'm sure I will see you at a Claritee event soon.
Oh, I'd love to come to a Claritee event. They sound amazing. And with that, how can people find out what you're doing, when the next events are, and get connected with you, Alex?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. We've got the Claritee website. We've got on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I think we're on TikTok. I don't know. I don't know about stuff like that. But yeah, no, we're everywhere. We're everywhere effectively. So website, social media, LinkedIn, get in touch. We'd love to have more and more people coming to more and more of our events and join the Claritee revolution, as I call it.
And just so that everyone knows, how do you spell Claritee?
Claritee for teetotal. That was how it was. I felt like, do you know what? I've always been rubbish at spelling. I've genuinely always been dreadful at spelling. That was one thing I could never do. And when you asked me that, I almost sunk in my chair. I thought to myself, imagine if I get this wrong.
Well, we would have redone it, but all good. But it's important for people to understand. They can see in the show notes where to look, but it is Claritee, Claritee. I almost said it wrong myself. There we go. Alex, thank you. Do you have some final words, please, for the listener?
Yeah, I would always say, listen to the inner voice, because genuinely, I think we get lost in the busyness and the noise all around everything. And I think knowing ourselves, listen to your inner voice, because if you actually take some time out and you ask yourself, your inner voice, some thoughts, some questions, I think you will find that you can find some answers, maybe that you don't want to hear, or maybe that you don't want to accept, but I think you can find some answers, definitely.
This episode's over, but let's keep the conversation going. How has this episode impacted you? Share your insights, takeaways, and reflections with actions on social media, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback creates powerful ripple effects, helping others to discover its value. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for links on how to work with me, where to buy my new book, Focus on Why, Create a Purposeful Way of Life, available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and where to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.